So I'm going to show you a drawing-based activity that I use with a lot of people who have experienced trauma. It's a really good way, I find, of talking to people about what it's like to have been a victim, but to also make the distinction that they've actually survived the trauma. So we can draw it out on the paper and personalise it. A lot of people will get stuck over here being a victim, so it's probably good to use to try and move someone over to seeing themselves or more identifying more as a survivor. So I'm going to demonstrate this activity with Sarah. So Sarah is not a client, Sarah is my co-worker, but she's going to pretend to be a client today. And I'm going to talk to Sarah as if she was a client. Sarah, we've been doing a lot of talking about how you feel about what happened to you. And I'm wondering if you'd be interested in trying something a bit different today. And I wonder if you would like to do a drawing activity with me.
Okay.
So I'm going to take this piece of paper. First thing I'm going to do is fold it in half, because I'm going to ask you if you could do two drawings for me. Okay, so I'll give you this. I'm wondering if you could have a think for a minute about how you might do this, because I'm going to ask you to draw a picture of a victim. So someone who's been through a really hard time and is feeling really bad. Something's happened to them that shouldn't have happened to them, and it's really affected them. And on this side, I'm going to ask you to do kind of like the opposite. So it's a survivor. So while you're thinking about drawing it, you don't have to be an artist. It's not about your drawing ability, but have a think about how you might start the drawing. Have you got anything in your head at all?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So sometimes it helps to think about what colour you might start with. It doesn't have to be a person or something like that. You might even draw symbols or just colour or any kind of image. It's up to you.
So I can draw anything?
You can draw anything that comes into your head.
Okay.
Yep. And you might like to use pencils, or you might like to use the big crayons or the little crayons. That's up to you.
I think I'm going to use this. So I just start?
Yep. Whenever you're ready.
I'm not very good at drawing.
Doesn't matter. It's kind of like the drawing is talking for you.
Can I draw other people in the picture?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
Do I need to draw anything else?
It's up to you. That's your victim drawing?
Yep.
Okay. Do you think that looks... You happy enough with that?
Well, it's just the beginning of one, I guess.
Okay. You know what helps sometimes? Can I hold it up and show it to you?
Yeah.
Can you see it?
Yeah. What other things would I draw in it?
Is there anything else you'd like to draw in it?
I can think of one more thing.
Okay. Okay. Have another look at it. Yep. That's it for you?
Yep.
Sarah, are there any words that come to mind when you look at this? Do you want to write them on the paper?
Yeah.
So you've written sad and alone and hurt. Yeah. This person does look very sad, and you've drawn it so that they look like they're alone over here on their own. So it's a pretty lonely experience being a victim. Can you tell me something else about what that might feel like for the victim?
For the victim. Does it have to be one word?
It can be whatever you want. no friends.
Mm.
Yeah, okay. All right, will I hold that up so you can have a look again?
Mhm.
Sometimes you see things differently when you hold it up. Does that look like about it for you for the victim?
Mhm. Yep.
You don't want to add anything or change anything?
No.
Okay. Do you want to have a go at doing the survivor?
Yep.
I wonder what survivor means to you. You can show me with your drawing.
Nope.
Nope.
Do I need to draw anything else?
I'll hold it up, you can see.
Mhm.
Yep. Do you think you need to draw anything else?
I don't need to draw anything else. No.
Okay. Can you think of words to go with this one?
Yep.
You're onto that one already. Lots of words.
Yeah.
There's a big difference, isn't there, between these two drawings?
Mm.
How do you feel when you look at this one?
Sad,
And how do you feel when you look at this one?
happy, and sort of peaceful.
Okay, that's good. So Sarah, I'm talking to you as a co-worker now.
Mhm.
Could you, I'm just wondering how that experience was for you.
I think it was surprisingly emotional. I wasn't expecting, I was sort of remembering back to the schoolyard as a kid, just to find something where I could think about being a victim versus, you know, being a survivor. And yeah, I didn't expect that it would be as emotional as it was, and it wasn't a very difficult experience that I was reflecting on. So
Yeah.
I guess it raised for me, if you were reflecting on a trauma, that it's would bring up a lot of things potentially.
Yeah, I think drawing has a great ability to do that, but it needs to be managed. So I guess just a few things when I'm thinking about tips. I wouldn't do this in the first session. Absolutely wouldn't do this in the first session. You would have to have some, build a bit of a context, I think, to enable this to be as safe as possible for the person. You'd have to spend a bit of time explaining what a victim and a survivor is, and I think not just imposing your own interpretation of that, but actually talking with the person about what their meaning is for those words. It's really important that you're attentive when the person's doing it, so you know you're not thinking about what you're going to buy at the shops tonight or what you're going to do the next session. You're actually looking at what the person's doing. That not only shows respect, but that also gives you the opportunity to look at what emphasis the person is putting on different aspects of the drawing. I noticed when you were doing it, you've made several circles here. And what were you trying to? You said when I pointed that out,
Yeah,
that was,
it was that I wanted to sort of get the crayon to convey that sort of brightness of happiness. Yeah.
The other thing I think that's another way I've noticed sometimes when I've done this activity with people, particularly when I hold it up, which gives you a great way of really reflecting and a bit differently, is that you can see they're quite confronted by looking at the victim side of the drawing, so you can actually ask them, would you prefer that I turned this over? Because ultimately we want to focus on achieving more of this, and not leave people sitting over here. I think you have to be very careful with the timing for this one because it can be very triggering. So you have to know the client fairly well. You'd certainly be well beyond having rapport. There'd be a sense of trust in the room. The client would be indicating a willingness to
to explore these concepts or these feelings in some way, even if they're resistant. So you have to use your professional assessment to know at what point is it safe and appropriate and purposeful to actually maybe gently push the client into this space, particularly for those who are stuck. They might still be very willing to draw the victim drawing, but very unwilling to draw or even contemplate, let alone talk about the survivor drawing. So you really have to know your client very well and be very clear of why you would be doing this at all and when it is the best time to do it, or try it anyway. Yeah. The activity, I think, is really good because it allows normalising of emotions. It allows a lot of validation. It also it essentially allows us to explore and acknowledge people's strengths. So the things that they have used or come from within them to actually survive a trauma. It's a way of enabling people to explore their emotions. I think when people are involved in drawing, especially using drawing therapy, it evokes emotions just doing it. So I guess that's the purpose of the words too, and holding the drawing up so they can reflect. It enables people to actually articulate not only feelings but thoughts as well that go with the drawing. I might say too, for a lot of people who are illiterate, the writing part of it isn't essential. You don't have to do the writing part of it. The drawing just works on its own. But giving people giving people the space, I suppose, to label those feelings and what's going on for them in their head and in their emotions during the exercise is what's really important. This activity is good for concretising what are essentially very abstract concepts, and because you're drawing it onto the paper, you're giving it form, you're giving it, and the client is giving it meaning for themselves, and then it's not me giving it meaning, the client will then explain the meaning to me, and so then they're able to explore everything that's connected with that. I'm not asking them to actually draw them being a victim or them being a survivor. Of course, they, as you found, they actually go there. But it's actually stepping outside themselves to actually draw that as a more generalised image. I think you've got to be very mindful of compliance, that people will say yes to doing something just because you've suggested it. So it's really important, I think, to really explain the activity and what you're asking them to do in a lot of detail so that they can, and give them permission to say yes or no. I've found a lot of clients will say yes and then sit there in front of a blank piece of paper and just not get it. It's obvious they don't get it or that they don't want to do it. And you have to respect that and explore that, I suppose, a little bit. And you might have to build the activity a little bit. I know when I was in the demonstration, I talk about you might like to use symbols. That's really difficult for people with intellectual disability because symbolism is an abstraction. So you'll probably find that most people will draw realistic figures, more so than, you know, a whole swirl of black or something like that that symbolises something. So that would be a difference. It's interesting, actually. The activity can take the whole session, or sometimes it's over in 5 minutes, and sometimes it's a process that can go on over a couple of sessions. But when it's finished, the client would tell me it's finished. I wouldn't go, that's finished, thanks, take it on. You know, are we done? Are we finished? Is there anything you want to add? I might also ask them if there's anything they'd like to try and remove or rub out, which helps give them some closure on the actual activity. The other thing I ask them is if they would like to take it with them or leave it with me. Most clients want to leave it with me. A lot of clients don't want to take it with them, but they know I'll look after it and we can refer back to it later. If they do, I'd like to try and get a photocopy of it, just for my records and my own reflection after the session, for notes and whatnot.